All right, Shalom. I want to start off by giving all praise, honor, and glory due to Yahweh, Bahashem, Yahweh Shai, Bahashem, Rakakwadash. I like to give divine honors unto the apostles and the elders of great millstone, who are lent this truth from, and I like to say peace and salutations unto the hopefully elect. And today, I just want to do this lesson on, an incident that took place out here in the city, a couple of days ago, you know, involving a woman and her children, because one of her children was, shot, by her sibling, which, man, oh man, that's, that particular thing, children being shot or shooting themselves has been a reoccurring thing, out here in Detroit alone, because people aren't, securing their firearms properly. And this, particular, thing this particular, incident I'm going to go into, bring out a couple of scriptures. Lord willing, this lesson is edifying, straight to the point, and that's just, the main thing while I'm using this particular, article, strictly for edification, but it's just a crazy situation. But it says, it's from Metro Detroit News. It says a Detroit mother is facing several felony charges after prosecutors say an unsecured gun left in her car led to the death of her 6-year-old daughter. According to Wayne County prosecutors, Tanya Sharice Anish Johnson, 41, left her 5 children, ages 2 to 5, inside a vehicle while she went into a restaurant on Harper Avenue near Gratiot to pick up a DoorDash order, so she was DoorDashing. It says police were called to the location around 12:06 p.m. Officers found the 6-year-old suffering from a gunshot wound to the head. She was taken to the hospital where she later died. Prosecutors say an 11-year-old boy inside the vehicle found a handgun under the driver's seat and fired it, striking his sister in the back of the head. During the arraignment, an assistant prosecutor told the court the shooting was avoidable, adding that too many children have been suffering injuries and deaths as a result of improper gun secure tendencies. And again, that's the excuse me, Slakia. That's one reason a lot of children have been dying just here in the city alone, because people aren't securing their firearms properly. And the incident honestly was avoidable, because she could have again either secured her firearm properly or just left it at home or had it on their person, but it's gonna say that she was a CPO holder. So it says prosecutors said Johnson is a concealed pistol license holder and should have known proper firearm storage procedures, and which when you take CPL classes here in Michigan, when you go to get your gun license, that's one thing they teach you is proper, firearm safety and storage. So again, she should have known better. It says the court also heard that the boy told investigator his mother always has a gun in the car, and knew that and that he knew the weapon was real, but did not know it was loaded. And this just goes to show you that, man, children, when they get into things now, it just goes to show you that, man, she just ain't no telling. You see what she look like. So just having firearms in the car unsecure, knowing you have 5 children sitting in there and expecting one of them not to find it. So again, this situation could have been avoided. So continuing, it says the prosecutor also told the judge the boy now faces last Slakia. The prosecutor also told the judge the boy now faces lasting emotional trauma, saying there's going to be lifelong trauma that this young boy, Slakia, that this young man, well, he's still a young boy because again he isn't 12 yet, said is going to suffer as a result of shooting his sister, knowing that he killed her. Now, of course, there's going to be, trauma, And I'm not laughing at it, but still, man, like, well, it's judgment at the end of the day. But you're not gonna, be able to just go through life, you know, normally without knowing that, you killed your sister. Even though it wasn't intentional, still, like, he was messing around with this gun. He didn't know it was loaded, but he still should have known better than to point it at her, and then as a result of that, now she's gone, which again is judgment. It is sad, but there's no telling what that young girl did, either in this life or, in her past life to deserve, being taken out in that fashion. It says during the hearing, prosecutors also said Johnson gave conflicting statements to officers about the gun. They told the court she initially said she did not know the weapon was inside the vehicle, but later said she was not sure whether she had removed it or not. You're going to know if you left your firearm in the car or not. You're going to know. Like, it's just something you don't forget. And I get it, certain people, they forget things, but like, come on, man. You're not going to forget that. It says investigators also said that when officers later searched Johnson's home, other firearms registered to her name were found unsecured. Johnson is charged with a safe storage firearm violation causing death, 3 counts of second-degree child abuse, and 4 counts of felony firearm. She was arraigned Thursday in 36th District Court and given a $30,000 bond. So, again, even in her home, she had firearms, that were unsecured. You have 5 children. If you're going to own firearms, secure them properly so that situations like this don't happen, you know. But at the same time, what happened to that young girl, again, is judgment. It is sad, but it's still judgment. So I'm going to start with the book of Job, chapter 4 and verse 7. It says, "Remember, I pray thee, whoever perish being innocent, or where will the righteous cut off?" And right, nobody perishes being innocent, because at the end of the day, we all sin and we're all worthy of death, but the Lord is going to have mercy, you know, on, the remnant, the 144,000 and 1/3 men, women, and children, you know. But the wicked of our people, they're going to be slain in various fashions. That was just, that young girl's particular way of going out, being killed by her own brother, unintentionally, but, it happened. And, again, it's his fault. Now, even though they didn't charge him, or take him to juvenile, from what it looks like, they didn't take him away, but, now their mother is gone, which again, it starts with her because it is her fault, for having an unsecured firearm, not only in the vehicle, but also, in her home. But it just happened to happen in public. So I'm going to get the book of Lamentations, chapter 4, in verse 3, and it says, even the sea monsters draw out the breast, they give suck to their young ones. The daughter of my people is become cruel, like the ostriches in the wilderness. And again, man, the Israelite woman, primarily the so-called black woman, those that aren't in the truth, man, and that have children, they're cruel to their children, man. They don't really care for them properly, and this is why a lot of these little kids out here end up becoming demons, at a certain age once they start growing up, or just because of, their upbringing. But this was cruel. She didn't really care about her children's safety, because if she did, then, she would have taken proper precautions of securing her firearm, and if you're a CPO holder, then it should have either been on their persons or again stored in a trunk somewhere, and this is why everyone doesn't need to own firearms, man, because they don't know what they're doing, So, yeah, man, it's judgment, you know. That is judgment. I'm also going to get the book of Amos, chapter 7, and verse 17. And it says, therefore, thus saith the Lord, thy wife shall be an harlot in the city, and thy sons and thy daughters shall fall by the sword, and thy land shall be divided by line, and thou shalt die in a polluted land, and Israel shall surely go into captivity forth of his hands, forth of his land, Slakia. And again, this scripture was brought out, at camp, the other day. But the point I want to get in this verse is, thy sons and thy daughters shall fall by the sword. And what's one of the main ways our people, die here in America? They get shot, primarily, by the police. If not by the police, then, another Israelite, they take each other out. But this just goes to show you, man, we're up under the curses. We suffer these particular things, and it happens. This is why we need, mercy. But this particular thing, children being killed, that's going to become a recurring thing, and it's not just going to be children. A lot of people, are going to perish, in the time to come, because again, we are in Jacob's trouble, so more shootings are going to happen, on a mass scale, man. So a lot of people are going to be taken out, both young and old, women and children, you know. So I'm going to end it with that. The book of Ezekiel chapter 9 and verse 5, and it says, well, I'll start at 4, but the main point, is verse 5 and 6. But this is Ezekiel 9 and 4, and it says, and the Lord said unto him, go through the midst of the city, through the midst of Jerusalem, and set a mark upon the foreheads of the men that sigh and that cry. Excuse me, Slakia. Set a mark upon the foreheads of the men that sigh and that cry for all the abominations that be done in the midst thereof. And, the men that are sighing and crying are the men of the Lord, preaching and teaching, us making these videos, man. This is us crying out to the Lord, because again, the things that are done in this place, America, are abominable indeed, and we need deliverance from this place. But what, this is the Lord, putting that mark, and the mark that is spoken of in this verse, Sawa, which is what? The mark of exemption. So once the Lord, sends out those death angels, to start rendering judgment upon our people and the other nations here in America, all over the world, but primarily here in America, Babylon the Great, the remnant, they're going to be fine, because they're going to have that mark of exemption. Verse 5, and it says, and to the others he said in mine hearing, go ye after him through the midst of the, it's like it, go ye after him through the city, and smite. Let not your eye spare, neither have ye pity. Slay utterly old and young, both maids and little children, and women, but come not near any man upon whom is the mark, and begin in my sanctuary. Then they began at the ancient men which were before the house. And right, the main point is that, everyone that isn't right, everyone that isn't of the elect, talking about, of the nation of Israel, they're going to be taken out. It doesn't matter if they're young, old, young women, older women, or little children, they're going to be taken out, man. And in this case, again, that young girl was taken out by her brother. It was accidental, but at the same time, she was taken out, man. She was judged. She paid for, sins again that she committed, most likely in a past life. The Lord got her back, So, Lord willing, this lesson was edifying. I want to give all praise, honor, and glory due to Yahweh, Bahashem, Yahweh Shai, Bahashem. Rakak Rash. I like to give double honors unto the apostles and the elders of Great Millstone, who I learned this truth from, and I like to say peace and salutations unto the hopefully elect. Till the next time I say, Shalom.